What's up out there, everybody? My name is Stephen Banks. I'm a saxophonist with young concert artists and also the saxophone professor at Ithaca College in Ithaca, New York, where I'm coming to you from today. And I'm just super excited to introduce my new show, Curious Dyads. My favorite thing about this show is that I get to know and collaborate with a lot of my favorite artists, even during all this coronavirus craziness. So first up on the docket is the flutist, Anthony Trionfo. He just brings so much sparkly joy to everything that he plays, and I'm hoping to maybe get some of his good vibes going into my playing too. So I'm actually envisioning that each episode of Curious Dyads will be pretty unique. I don't ever want it to feel like an interview or anything like that, but I do want there to be one through line, which I'm calling the Musical Bucket List Challenge. For this challenge, all the artists will have to do is let me know the last thing that they actually got to cross off of their musical bucket list, but then also let me know one thing that's still on that list that seems a little bit scary or a little bit intimidating. Sometimes we'll actually be able to cross it off during the show, sometimes not. So I'm really excited to see what Anthony has to say about this. And let's roll the intro. All right, Anthony Trionfo, welcome to the first episode of Curious Dyads. I'm so excited to have you here with us. And you know, we're going to jump right in here with the bucket list challenge.
Yes.
Okay, go.
So the last thing that got crossed off my bucket list, and I mean, it was a few years ago, but it was performing John Corigliano's Pied Piper Fantasy with orchestra, which is an amazing piece because you have to dress up as the Pied Piper. I was wearing tights. It was in a cape. And it also incorporates little kids. It goes through the whole story of the Pied Piper. So I got to play along with a lot of my students for the first time.
Wow.
That was an amazing performance. That was a bucket list. I mean, I had dreams of wanting to play that piece with an orchestra. And it's never programmed, so I was very, very lucky.
What orchestra was that with?
This was at Colburn School Orchestra while I was still in school, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, that was fantastic. And that was 2 years ago or so. And then in terms of what I want to cross off next is I want to reimagine the Bach Partita in like a pop synth dance house music vibe. I want to really get into recreating the classics in a way that I hear them and that I get excited by them in a way that I think can transfer to other people. So that's what I'm trying to do.
That is so cool. Have you like even attempted to do that before, or is this totally new?
The closest thing I've done to that is just recording in GarageBand and messing around with some audio stuff. It's kind of been on the back burner in the back of my mind for a while, and what's a better time than now? So.
Right, exactly. So, do you think you're going to do that, during your quarantine?
Without a doubt. Once I finish my more standard projects, then I will be set on that, for sure.
Okay, well, you got to send it to me.
Yeah. Oh, and I'll drop the link. It's going to go big, for sure.
Yeah, Anthony's going to go viral. It's going to be crazy. Viral among flutists, I guess.
Yeah.
Although, saxophonists play the Bach Partita too.
Yes, they do.
And I'll never forget when I was doing the finals for Young Concert Artists auditions, and I don't remember when I saw you. It was either before I played it or right after. I think I looked out from the stage.
I was like right there.
Yeah, and saw that you were there, and I was like, oh boy, okay, what now? Because honestly, full disclosure, I had been studying your recording.
Oh, wow. Well, that's nice.
Yeah, was that from your? There's one on YouTube. Is that from your debuts or what?
I'm going to have to get back to you on that. I don't know. Probably.
Well, it's good.
Thanks.
It's in Merkin
Oh yeah,
somehow,
then
in Merkin
definitely,
Hall.
definitely. And that's so funny. Like that was a long time ago now. I play it completely differently. And
Ah,
hearing you play it, it was refreshing because I'm not a snob. You know, you can only play the Mozart D major concerto. Or
yeah, right.
don't play it. It's for the oboe. Like, come on. Same thing with this. You can find inspiration in all things, and I thought it was amazing. I thought it was really good, very captivating, and that's what I care about, really.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right. Well, thank you. I
yeah,
appreciate that. That's a really good segue, that idea of something being captivating. Um, because everyone that's on the show, I just sort of want to ask them what it is about music that's captivating to them. Like is what motivates you to practice, what motivates you to get back out there on stage whenever we can get back out there on stage. What are the things that you really really love hearing or creating in music? It's a big question, but
yeah. Sure. I'm noticing more and more, and it's always been a theme of my life, though. I find music for myself personally, performing and practicing, very therapeutic, very healing, very mindful. And that's something that I so enjoy being in that flow of not thinking about anything but the resonance under your fingers and the air filling your lungs. And it's something that I try to give to my audience. I want to, whenever I'm performing, no matter what it is, I want them to have, even if for only 5 seconds, a moment where they're not thinking about anything else but the atmosphere and dynamic that I'm creating, or that we're creating if it's an ensemble, to deliver the best performance of a piece. And it's always really rewarding when you can see it in someone's face when they're just captivated. The word of the day, I
right.
guess. And that's all I strive to do when I'm playing for someone. I want them to, even if it's not a beautiful piece per se, it could be a haunting piece or a sad piece, whatever it is. My goal is always to transport them along with what I'm doing and take it away from the real life. Give a moment of stillness, of meditation, of reflection.
Right. Yeah. I think that's one of the biggest things that I just miss about live performance.
Yeah.
Here we are trying to do a virtual collaboration and everything, but I think that there's just nothing that can replace when you're in there for that moment,
Right.
and there are 500 people or 10 people, sitting there sharing that same
Mm-hmm.
moment. And that's one of those indescribable things about musicianship that I feel like during this time we're not able to um, really
Not at
access,
all. Yeah.
which really
I mean,
sucks. you know?
that silence that comes down in the hall right before you're about to begin. Yeah,
Mm,
I miss that. I
hmm.
miss that. And speaking of, trying to make recordings in quarantine and not live, the perfectionism goes out the wazoo because you don't have any other option.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's maddening to not have the live performance to just say, oh, well, it's live, I messed up, but I went for it. It's like,
Right.
I went for it, but make it better. So,
Right. I went for it, but I should probably do it
yeah.
again another time where I don't go for it because I
Yeah.
need to get it
Go for
right.
it better. Go for it better. That's what I say.
Right. Well, that's probably a better way of thinking about it. Yeah. Well, and so do you feel like you've been able to stay motivated to practice during all of this, or are you a work in progress?
It comes in waves. It comes in waves
Mm,
for sure.
yeah.
The first few, I can say now confidently, I'm more motivated than I have been in months,
Yeah.
and that's exciting and also a little bit scary that it took that. But it comes in bursts, and I'm a part of a. It's called Etude of the Week. It's a group for all flutists, and they upload their etudes every week. We go through a book, one etude a week, and
Yeah.
that's actually keeping me very motivated. I'm very
Yeah.
inspired by this community of people coming together, sharing all of their work, beginners through professionals. And that's
Yeah.
actually one of my biggest motivators right now. After this interview, I'm gonna actually practice the etude for this week. So that's, finding community is what I'm really trying to do. Finding inspiration from others because, yeah, frankly, I don't have it myself all the time. I just don't.
Yeah, yeah, it's very tough to keep up in regular times, I
Yeah.
think, and now is even worse because I think when things are going, we always have something to prepare
Hmm.
for, and then I think it really made me do some reflecting about if I don't have something to prepare for,
Then what do you want to
then
do,
what are
right?
what are those
Exactly.
things that I really want to do and that I find worthwhile and fulfilling and that's those are the hard
For
conversations
sure. I mean,
to
that's
to really have.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that etude of the week thing is really cool.
Yeah, it's
So
amazing.
is that just for flute
I'm sure
or
there are other instruments that do it, but this one specifically is flute only. There's like 6,000 members. It's insane.
wow?
It's great.
Yeah,
I'm such a flute nerd
yeah,
at heart. Um, I'm just a flute nerd.
right.
I love playing the flute more than playing music sometimes, which is sad to say. But
Oh
I
wow,
love just playing the flute and the act of playing the flute so much.
right. That's so crazy. I think that I'm the exact opposite. Yeah, like I'm like, oh, I really have to play this
Yeah.
saxophone. Like, I I mean, okay, I love the saxophone. I think it's great. It has all these different colors. It can do all these different things, and we can play such a wide range of genres. But at the end of the day, sometimes I look back and I'm like, why am I not a violinist? Why didn't I play the clarinet or
Anything
whatever,
else, right? Yeah.
Right. But, I've talked to other people that play, you know, uh, those very instruments that often say the same thing. And they're like, well, I wish I could play saxophone. And,
The
so
grass
I
is
guess the
always
grass is
greener.
always
Oh,
greener. Right?
oh!
Yeah.
Great minds think alike. Whoa! Love that
Got
moment.
him.
Cool.
Yeah. So, well, anyway, so how long have you been on the Young Concert Artists roster?
I joined in, I believe, November 2016 as a winner of
Okay.
their 20. I mean, it's so crazy how fast the time flies. I do believe it was my senior year of undergrad, and I graduated in so it
Okay.
was their 2017 cycle, I believe, but I won in the end of 2016, and then the debuts. I mean, my debuts weren't for almost a year and a half, 2 years after that. So the
Wow.
the time period between when I won and when things actually started going was almost a year.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
crazy.
And so what was that like for you? That transition from, okay, I'm preparing for my lesson in school, to, oh, okay, I'm gonna play in the Kennedy Center or, as a
Yeah.
soloist. What was that like for you?
I'm going to be completely honest. It sent me into a giant depression and anxiety
Mm.
filled state because I was like, oh my goodness, yeah, like you said, I'm going to perform in the Kennedy Center. That's crazy. That's crazy. As a solo
Yeah.
flutist I mean, Albert Cano Smith, who's also on the roster I played with, and I love collaborating with him. But it's crazy to think about. You aspire to these things for your entire life, and then they're presented in front of you, and then what happens? You get so scared for what? And that's something that
Mm.
I've grown a lot. I don't really approach it that way anymore. But when all of that first started happening, I just thought it was so daunting, the fact that I had to go out into the world as, and this is a wrong idea, I believe now. But I thought, oh, I have to be this polished product now. I'm done. I'm Anthony Trionfo,
Mm.
YCA artist. Which, come on, come on. I was only 21. Like, now I'm
Right.
25. Wow. Um, and it's just crazy to think about how much my mindset has shifted and how much I've had to grow
Yeah.
to have a healthy mindset about all this. Because it is, I mean, it's so easy to just let fear and anxiety crumble you into not even wanting to practice or try because you're like, why am I worthy of any of this?
Absolutely. Oh my
So
goodness.
that's where I
Yes,
come from.
Anthony. That is a word. That is a word right there that I needed to hear today on this day, like right now. Um, that's crazy. So you said that your mindset changed from that. How would you describe what your mindset is now?
Sure.
Like what's the difference?
So when I first started doing bigger concerts and just traveling a lot, I expected, and I think we always think about this, we're thinking that the audience is judging us in a negative light. And they are judging us. They're there. Whether they're, whatever they're doing, they're judging somehow.
Right.
But in every concert I've done, and I've done some pretty whack jobs that I'm not proud of, personally, But I've never had an experience where an audience member was mad or upset, or I ruined their day, or my cracking a note or playing a wrong note or playing out of tune caused them to never listen to music again. I mean, what's the worst that can happen, really? It really forced me to get down to what's important. Am I going to die right now? Am I going to kill someone with my awful tones? No. However, I will advise, flute is a very high instrument, and a lot of audience members can be older with earbuds, so I had to learn to sometimes disclose that information at the beginning. Right. But, you adapt. And so I say this to my students, and I say this to myself a lot when they're struggling or just so mad and frustrated. It's just flute. It's just music. It's meant to be enjoyed. Think about what you're so stressed about, and then think about how that relates to everything else going on in the world. And what are you doing to help that? And how is you stressing over an F sharp not having the depth of the Titanic at the bottom of the ocean gonna do? Take a break. Chill out. I'm very about taking a step back and taking a breath. Especially as flute players, we're also neurotic anyway. So that's a lot of the work that I've been doing.
And I guess going a little bit further with that idea of sort of transitioning into this part of your life, where you're touring and all that kind of stuff, how did your practice change when you got onto the roster? And like when you're touring, for example, are you practicing the things that you have going on right now for concerts, or when those concerts are happening, are you practicing for the next season, or like how does that work for you?
Yeah, I mean, it varies season by season and month by month. When I get my my season for the year, you have to be just very smart about it, because depending on how many recitals you're saying yes to, and concerto engagements, chamber music engagements, recording projects, you have to know innately in yourself how hard you want to work to deliver. Not even how hard, but what's the product you're trying to give. And it's much better to have one recital program that you're passionate about, that I'm passionate about, that I can focus my energy on for that year, so that I don't really have to focus on learning new rep outside of that unless there's an opportunity that comes my way. So in terms of recitals, that stuff is planned usually a year, 6 months to a year in advance in terms of repertoire, and I'll start that. I'm a big fan of starting something and learning it very well early on, and then leaving it for a long time, letting it kind of live in the body and marinate. So let's say I know I'm going to be playing the Iber Concerto in November. First of all, I've played it a million times. But every time is a new chance to learn something new, and you have to bring your playing up to that new level, and that takes a tremendous amount of effort. And by doing that early, spending the time to say, I'm not 13 years old playing this anymore, spending the week really fixing all those habits you got into, and then putting it away is really helpful for me. And then you come back to it, and it's like, oh, it's fine. There have been times when I've been practicing for the next concert in the hotel room, like right before the recital I'm going to give. The overlap is sometimes insane. But I also enjoy it a little bit. I love the pressure of that. And the more you do it, the better and easier it is, because you're just used to that. You get used to the having to deliver a high product. And a lot of times there's cancellations, and then you'll say, by the way, are you able to do this recital next week? You don't have a recital program prepared because that's not your radar. So then you have to say, okay, what can I do that's captivating right now? What do I have in my repertoire, in my belt pocket? So also thinking about, what are you already good at? What do you already love playing? So you have those, I guess I'm going to call them shortcuts to delivering great performances. Not every recital has to be brand new repertoire of the most outside thing ever. It has to just be true to yourself. And
Sure.
that's what I really rely on at the end of the day when I get stressed about practice and repertoire, when a lot of stuff is coming in at once. I just rambled so much. I hope some of that made sense.
No, I think all of that
Okay,
makes
great,
sense.
yeah.
It's like it might be rambling to you, but for everyone else, this is just new information.
Okay,
You
yeah,
know?
I mean,
So,
yeah, my brain is just going like, kind of.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, well, yeah, that's awesome, and I think that one thing that particularly resonated with me was the idea of, bringing out a piece well in advance of when you need to play it and then putting it away, and coming back to it. I've done that a few times, and actually I've had some good success with that.
great.
But I had never codified it in the way that you'd. I never thought of it as a strategy. It was sort of something that just happened and got lucky with.
No, I'm a big fan of that.
So-
I'm also a big fan of practicing entirely away from the instrument, meditating while hearing the piece or visualizing the score in your mind, or just sitting there looking at it, singing the piano part or the orchestra part or the flute part in your head, hearing it all at the same time. Mental practice is probably
Right.
one of the biggest things I do, more than the physical practice during a season, because you're gonna get hurt if you're practicing physically all that time. Mental practice is something that has saved my life many a time. You're on a plane, learning those last few notes. It works though. It works. So I'm
Right.
a big advocate of the mental practice.
Well, we have some music for the people today, and so when we started talking about like what we were going to play together, because that's sort of the whole point of this thing, is like I just wanted to get to play with a lot of cool musicians. What came to mind for you?
Yeah.
With playing with saxophone.
Right. So I've never before this done like a duet with just a saxophone before. And when I think of saxophone, I always think of France. I think of French music. I think of La Création du Monde. I think of Werther, Massenet, which just old school. I think of Gershwin, American in Paris, American composer, but based off of that. So I immediately said, "Oh, let's do some French music," because it's just gorgeous and where my mind goes to. And French music is my favorite. So, and then you mentioned Bozza, and I immediately was like, "Yeah, of course," because I've played so much of his stuff before. He's written such great wind things. He's most famous for his wind things, even though he was a violinist, which is crazy. And this is a new piece that I haven't played before, so it goes along with the theme of being curious. But this piece, like all of his other pieces that I've grown to love, I love the harmonic texture, and I love the way it goes in and out of these different modalities seamlessly.
Yeah.
Especially the first movement is my favorite, probably the hardest to put together as well.
That's for sure.
But I mean the colors, and especially playing with saxophone, it's so cool. The wash of sound is something that I'm not familiar with between flute and saxophone as much. And it makes me sorry, oboe friends, but I think this might be more fun.
Yeah, well, just to introduce it to everybody, it's Eugene Bozza's Three Pieces, and it's originally written for flute and oboe, or flute duet. Actually, that's sort of in the title there as
That's
well.
probably the worst version of them.
But obviously we've done it here for flute and saxophone, and I'll be playing soprano saxophone for that. And I agree with you. I think that the flute and saxophone have some sort of odd connection in the sound.
Yeah.
It's like it's like we complete each other.
No, seriously.
In a way.
Between certain harmonies,
Yeah.
it's like there's such a depth that happens at certain moments, and you're like,
Right.
whoa, that is a great blend.
Right.
But they still maintain their own characteristic elements too. Fantastic.
Yeah, and I'm personally sort of nerdy about overtone things and the composition of sound. And one thing I do realize is that with the flute, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong about this, but I think you guys are primarily at the even overtones, like the second overtone, the fourth overtone, the sixth. Like when we hear the sound, because when you play sound, there's the fundamental note, and then we have these other pitches in there, and the saxophone is one of the really unique instruments that has the full range of overtones present in the sound at all times. And so sometimes I think
Right.
maybe even that idea that you're talking about is coming from us literally sort of becoming married up there in the overtone
Yeah.
series,
That's
and bringing
fascinating.
out this unique color.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, but that's my little nerdy
No,
thing. Is
I'm
I just
fascinated by
really
that as
love
well.
sound.
That's yeah, I love talking about the nitty-gritties of sound.
Yeah, yeah. So, um, with this piece, I also really love the first movement. What would you say that our listeners might hear in this work that would be interesting for them?
Sure. I think there's that I would say that the feeling is a bit mysterioso, and with just these winding textures. You know, it's like kind of like a quilt coming together or being made. There's just these threads of fabric. You know, I'll come up and you'll be going down. We're constantly in contrary motion with each other, and when we are not, it's that much more magical. And I
Yeah.
think there's a great balance between who's an important voice and who is not. There's this constant. I mean, just it's like a wheel. It's just it just flows and spins. And I think that's the thing that I would listen for. Just this feeling of flowing, and how that flow goes through different emotions. There's calm moments. There's some moments of, I would say, maybe even anger or intensity and passion. There's some resigned behavior. There's the whole plethora of colors is possible in this first movement, which made it so hard to record because you just want to get it all.
Yeah. Exactly.
Especially for a piece, it's only
Yeah.
like 3 minutes. The first movement, there's very short movements, but they pack a lot in there, especially the first.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And then the second movement, I think you described almost like a pirate song.
Yeah, we had to come
or
together
something
on
like
our
that.
interpretation on that.
Yeah, that's been an interesting part of this whole process. And another thing that's been sort of exciting is just sending recordings back and forth and getting to talk through them, seeing what you'd like to do differently, or even just today what I was like, oh man, I don't know about this part, and you're like, Steven, I think it's
Yeah,
okay.
it's fine. It's more than fine. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It'll never ends, but
Right.
it's fantastic. Wow. It is fun.
Yeah, and then
It's so intense in a way, way more than being in live rehearsals sometimes. I think because you have the chance to really think about a response you want to give when you're sending everything online, and
Right.
there's
Yeah.
maybe less of a feeling of being shy about what needs to be said because there is that veil. Which I'm an advocate of
Right.
saying what you need, like communicate in person, but for a lot of people, I think I can see how it works. I mean, it's been a great process doing this.
Yeah.
I've learned so much, and it's been really fun.
Yeah, me too. I've definitely learned a lot, even just in the fact that it's the first time doing this and trying to really get it to sparkle and sound nice. And
Yeah.
yeah, right. Speaking of sparkle, that makes me think of the third movement. Uh, it's so fun and sparkly. Actually, I think you won't have heard this at this point, but in my intro, I described your playing as sparkly.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you.
Yeah, I said you make everything sparkle with joy or something like that. And so that's the one that I won't say the third's my favorite, but it's the one that makes me feel the most chipper.
It's so it's so cheeky.
Yes.
That's the best way I can describe it.
Yes, exactly. So, well, without further ado, I think we should just go ahead and let them hear some music. So, thank you, Anthony, so much for doing this project with me and joining me for the first episode of Curious Dyads. And for everyone out there, I hope you really enjoy Three Pieces by Eugene Bozza.
Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been really fun.